Because I had not worked in well over a year, that's while he was campaigning, had maintained 2 homes for much of that time, and had incurred a personal loss of $10,000, Toddy and I were financially strapped for the first time in our marriage. When I began looking for a job, the process was laborious, and with no concrete prospects in sight, my depression over the campaign was compounded. I felt worthless because I was not working, and with my time on my hands, I brooded over the meaning of my political defeat and drank heavily most nights. As I looked back on my run for Congress, it seemed to me that my reward for having served was that I was forced to challenge an incumbent who, because he had been spared the military service, was able to enter the political arena well ahead of me and to stack the deck against any political success on my part. In my depressed state, I began to despise Paul Tribble and his victory with an intensity I had never felt towards any other man, and my contempt for him expanded to encompass most of the young men of my generation who had found ways to avoid the war experience. To make matters worse, Toddy came home from running errands one day shortly after our return and breathlessly announced that the Tribbles had bought a house just around the corner from us. The cruel irony of having to watch him drive around the neighborhood with his congressional license plates was almost more than I could bear. In a bad place. I now began to isolate myself from meaningful contact with all but my immediate family. I avoided special occasions and seized on any pretext to maintain my self-imposed exile. I also became more obsessed with the Vietnam War, and I dwelt endlessly on the unfair treatment and lack of respect that my fellow veterans and I received from the media, from society, and from our government. By late winter, it was not an uncommon experience for me to open a new bottle of scotch every other day, and while my drinking did nothing to improve my melancholy and continued to search for the blessed oblivion I seemed to be able to find only at the bottom of a bottle. I could see that the pace of my drinking was accelerating, and on numerous occasions I told myself that I was going to have to give up my crutch before my children realized that their father was becoming a lush, but I always found some excuse to continue drinking. At the end of the summer of 1979, I was offered, with some help from the White House, a position as an attorney in the Office of the General Counsel at the Department of Defense. I was also drinking heavily almost every night, and my dependence on alcohol had become so fixed that my primary goal on rising in the morning was to make it home in the evening so that I could begin drinking again. After 6 months on the job, I could tell that I was becoming powerless over my ability to control my drinking, and though terrified by my situation in a way I had not felt since Vietnam, I dared not reveal my dark secret to anyone. For years, I had used alcohol to numb the pain of my Vietnam experience and the loss of my legs. And now, in what I regarded as a cruel irony, alcohol was failing to bring the relief of oblivion. Angered by the realization that my old companion was turning against me, I drank more heavily and became even more depressed and withdrawn. Toddy sensed that something was severely wrong, but since she did not realize the extent of my dependence on alcohol, she attributed my darkening moods to depression and waited for me to pull myself out of it.